I knew the end was coming the day Wesley walked in, wearing a suit that cost more than my first truck, smelling like expensive cologne and unearned confidence. He looked around the server room, my domain for 20 years, the humming heart of a billion-dollar industrial logistics empire, and crinkled his nose like he just stepped in something nasty. "It's a bit outdated, isn't it, Garrett?" he asked, tapping a polished Italian loafer against the raised floor tiles. "We need to pivot toward a more cloud-native, AI-driven infrastructure. My name is Garrett Sullivan. I'm 45 years old, and I've been keeping this company's digital backbone running since Wesley was in elementary school." I didn't roll my eyes. After 20 years in this game and 8 years before that in Army Signal Corps, I've learned to keep my reactions in check. I just took a sip of my coffee that had gone cold an hour ago and tasted like motor oil. "Wesley," I said, keeping my voice as flat as a Kansas highway, "this room processes 18,000 orders per hour. It keeps paychecks coming for 1,800 families. It doesn't need to be pretty. It needs to work." He gave me that condescending smile they teach in MBA programs right after the course on firing people while using words like family and team. That's the legacy mindset we're trying to disrupt, Garrett. My father built a solid foundation, sure, but we're building a rocket ship now. Great. A rocket ship. The kid couldn't figure out how to connect his laptop to the conference room projector without calling the help desk, and now he was Elon Musk. Look, I get it. I'm a 45-year-old guy in a field dominated by hoodies and energy drinks. I'm what they call old school. When the company website crashed at 3 a.m. because some marketing intern uploaded a 4K video to the homepage, I fixed it. When the warehouse scanners stopped talking to the inventory database because of a solar flare, I fixed it. When hackers tried to break in during Black Friday, I locked them out and traced their IP addresses back to some basement in Eastern Europe. I've been the invisible backbone holding this company together for 2 decades. The original CEO, Preston Sullivan, Wesley's dad, he knew what I was worth. Preston was a tough guy who started this business with 1 truck and a dream he couldn't afford. He respected experience, understood that some things can't be disrupted. 15 years ago, we got hit by a ransomware attack that nearly wiped us off the map. Nasty stuff. While the expensive consultants were running around like headless chickens, I locked down the network, isolated the infected systems, and rebuilt our core infrastructure from backups I kept on actual magnetic tape in a fireproof safe. I didn't sleep for 96 hours straight. When the dust settled, Preston called me into his office, poured 2 fingers of Jack Daniels, and asked me what we needed to prevent this from ever happening again. That's when we built the Guardian Protocol. Think of it as a dead man's switch, but for an entire company. It's a central control system that ties everything together: warehouses, billing, websites, security, communications. But here's the kicker. Preston was paranoid about insider threats and hostile takeovers. He had me code in a specific heartbeat protocol. My master admin account has to check in with the system every 48 hours with an encrypted authentication sequence. If my account gets disabled, or if I don't log that specific token, the system assumes the worst. It assumes someone has compromised the leadership or that I've been forced out by hostile actors. When that happens, it initiates Guardian Protocol lockdown. Guardian Protocol isn't some gentle timeout. It's a scorched-earth defensive measure. It shuts down external traffic, freezes warehouse manifests, locks financial gateways, and turns the entire digital infrastructure into an impenetrable fortress. The idea was to prevent data theft and maintain operational security until proper authority could be restored. Only 3 people could override it: Preston, me, and the board chairman Logan Barnes. But Preston had a stroke 8 months ago. He's alive, recovering slowly in a rehabilitation facility with nice gardens and nurses who speak in whispers. And in his absence, the board appointed Wesley as interim CEO. Wesley didn't know about Guardian Protocol. He didn't read the technical documentation his father had signed. He thought legacy meant useless. For 6 months, I watched Wesley systematically dismantle the culture Preston built. He fired Spencer Rodriguez, our warehouse supervisor who knew every driver's family situation, and replaced him with an algorithm that routed trucks into construction zones. He spent $3 million on a rebranding campaign that looked like a toddler attacked a whiteboard with crayons. And through it all, he kept looking at me like I was a rust stain on his shiny new corporate vision. I was the no guy. Can we migrate the entire database to this new cloud startup by Friday? No, Wesley. That's technically insane and legally impossible. Can we eliminate 2-factor authentication because it slows down the sales team? No, Wesley, not unless you want Russian hackers mining cryptocurrency on our payroll servers. He hated it. He hated that I knew where all the digital bodies were buried. He hated that the warehouse crew respected me more than him. But mostly, he hated that he couldn't just disrupt me away because he didn't understand what I actually did. I started seeing the warning signs. The Friday afternoon performance review meetings. The passive-aggressive emails where I got CC'd but not addressed. The new junior admin they hired, Colin Martinez, a kid who wore skinny jeans and thought Python was just a snake, kept asking me for my passwords for documentation purposes. I gave Colin the passwords to the printer network, let him have fun managing toner levels. One Tuesday afternoon, I was eating a turkey sandwich at my desk, monitoring server loads because our order volume had spiked 30% overnight thanks to a flash sale Wesley approved without consulting IT when HR walked in. Not the nice HR lady who brought cookies on birthdays. The Terminator HR, Nicole Henderson, whose smile never reached her eyes. "Garrett," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "Wesley would like to see you in conference room C. Bring your laptop." My gut dropped. I knew this feeling. It's the same feeling you get when your transmission starts making grinding noises on the interstate. Something critical was about to fail. I looked at my screen. Guardian Protocol dashboard glowing green, all systems nominal. "Sure, Nicole," I said, wiping mustard off my thumb. "Let me just secure my workstation." I walked down that hallway feeling like a condemned man. Past the break room where I'd celebrated 20 Christmas parties. Past the server room door, hearing the familiar hum of cooling fans. I felt like a ship's engineer being called to walk the plank. Conference room C. Wesley sat at the head of the polished table staring at his phone, didn't even look up when I entered. Colin, the skinny jeans kid, sat next to him, sweating through his vintage band t-shirt. "Sit down, Garrett," Wesley said, finally sliding his phone across the mahogany surface. I sat. I didn't open my laptop. I just folded my hands. Hands that had built this network from scratch. Hands that had carried servers up 3 flights of stairs during the flood of 2019. "We're making some structural changes," Wesley began, using his serious CEO voice. "The IT department needs fresh energy, a new direction. We appreciate your service, but your skill set no longer aligns with our strategic vision." "Translation," I said, cutting through the corporate speak. "I'm too old, too expensive, and I tell you no too often." Wesley's jaw tightened. "This is an at-will employment state, Garrett. We don't need to debate semantics. This is termination, effective immediately." Nicole slid a thick envelope across the table. "This outlines your severance package. It's contingent on signing a non-disparagement agreement and facilitating a full credential handover today." I looked at the envelope. Then I looked at Wesley. He looked smug, like he'd just solved world hunger. "Wesley," I said quietly, "does your father know about this?" "My father is on medical leave," he snapped. "I am the acting CEO. My decisions are final." "Okay," I said. "But there's something you need to know about the infrastructure. There's a protocol." "Save it," Wesley interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "Colin here is fully certified. He can handle any protocols. We just need the admin keys to the central server. The Guardian system." I looked at Colin. The kid looked like he was about to lose his lunch. He knew he wasn't ready. He barely knew how to configure a router, let alone manage a nationwide logistics network. "Wesley," I tried one more time because despite everything, I'd built this company's digital foundation with my own hands. "The Guardian system isn't just a computer, it's a security protocol. If you remove me without the proper transition sequence..." "Stop." Wesley stood up, leaning over the table. "Stop trying to make yourself indispensable. You're not. You're an obstacle. Hand over the credentials or we'll contest the severance." I stared at him for a long moment. I saw the arrogance, the complete disrespect for the system, for the work, for the people who depended on it. Something inside me clicked, like a safety being released. "All right," I said. "You want the keys? Here they are." I opened my laptop. The admin interface was clean, simple, my design. I created a new super user account for Colin and assigned him full administrative privileges. "There," I said, spinning the laptop around. "Colin, put in your new password." Colin's shaking fingers typed something, Probably password 123. Now, I said, I'm transferring root ownership to this account. I typed a command. The screen flashed. Transfer complete. Perfect, Wesley said, checking his Apple Watch. See? Was that so hard? One last thing, I said, closing the laptop. My account. You want security to disable it immediately, right? Obviously, Nicole said. Standard policy. Standard policy. I didn't tell them that Guardian Protocol specifically monitored my unique user hash. I didn't tell them that transferring admin rights doesn't transfer the heartbeat authentication. I didn't tell them that the moment my account status flipped to disabled, a 48-hour countdown would begin silently ticking in the background code. I stood up. Well, that's it then. Please hand over your badge and phone, Nicole said. I placed them on the table. My badge, worn smooth at the edges from 20 years of daily use. My company phone that had buzzed during every family dinner for 2 decades. Good luck, Wesley, I said. You're going to need it. We'll be fine, he sneered. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I walked out of that conference room. I walked past my desk without looking back. I walked out of the building into the bright Arizona afternoon sun. I got into my 2018 Ford F-150, tossed the severance packet onto the passenger seat, and turned the key. I checked my watch, 2:45 p.m. The system would try to ping my account for authentication in 48 hours. At 2:45 p.m., Thursday, when that ping came back as user disabled, Guardian Protocol would activate. The countdown had begun. Let me back up and explain what had been building to this moment. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment execution. This was a slow-motion train wreck that had been 6 months in the making. The first time I met Wesley, he was 14 years old. He came to the office with Preston, played solitaire on a secretary's computer for 2 hours, then complained that the mouse was laggy. I cleaned it for him and told him not to eat Doritos over the keyboard. He looked at me then with the same disdain he showed in that conference room. When he came back as interim CEO, the first thing he did was renovate the executive floor. He ripped out Preston's solid oak paneling and installed glass walls everywhere. So much glass it looked like an Apple store had a baby with an aquarium. He wanted transparency. The incident started about a month into his reign. And by incidents, I mean Wesley breaking things and blaming me for the consequences. Picture this. It's a Wednesday morning. I'm deep in database optimization because our order volume had jumped 25% overnight thanks to a flash sale Wesley approved without consulting IT. My desk phone rings. Garrett, the Wi-Fi is down in the executive conference room. I'm trying to stream a TED Talk for our leadership lunch. Wesley, the Wi-Fi isn't down. You're on the guest network, which throttles video streaming to prioritize warehouse operations. Switch to the secure internal network. I don't have the password for that. Why is everything so complicated? Just open it up. I can't just open up the corporate network, Wesley. We have PCI compliance standards. If I remove the encryption, Visa will fine us $50,000 a day and revoke our ability to process credit cards. Silence. Then, you're being an obstructionist, Garrett. Just fix it. He hung up. 20 minutes later, I get an email from Colin. Hey Garrett, Wesley asked me to look into the router settings. I reset the firewall to factory defaults. Streaming works great now. I nearly choked on my coffee. Resetting the firewall to factory defaults meant he had essentially unlocked the front door and put up a neon sign saying free data, help yourself. I sprinted to the server room. I had to kill the external connection, restore backup configurations, and patch the security hole before some botnet discovered our open network. It took me 45 minutes of frantic work. That afternoon, I got called into HR. Nicole sat there with her legal pad. Garrett, we've had reports that you shut down internet access to the executive floor during a critical meeting. I was fixing a massive security breach that Colin created, I explained, feeling my blood pressure spike. He exposed our entire internal network to the public internet. Nicole scribbled something. So you admit you disrupted service without authorization? I admit I prevented the company from getting sued into bankruptcy. Garrett, Nicole said, giving me that look reserved for misbehaving children, we need you to be a team player. Colin is innovative. He thinks outside the box. You're very rigid. Rigid. That became my brand over the next few months. I was rigid when I refused to give the marketing team admin access to the live website so they could tweak CSS in real time. I was rigid when I insisted we couldn't store customer social security numbers in a shared Google spreadsheet. I was rigid when I told Wesley that buying 200 cheap IoT security cameras for the warehouse was a bad idea because they used protocols with known vulnerabilities. "You're afraid of the future," Wesley told me in the hallway one day, adjusting his designer glasses. "Everything is security this and protocol that. You need to learn to move fast and break things." "Wesley," I said, "we're a logistics company. If we break things, people don't get their insulin. People don't get their baby formula. We're not Facebook, we're infrastructure." He just laughed. "That's very legacy thinking, Garrett." Then came the performance improvement plan. If you've worked in corporate America, you know what a PIP is. It's not a plan to improve your performance. It's a legal paper trail to justify firing you. The document was laughable. Goal 1. Demonstrate more collaborative attitude toward cross-functional innovation. Translation: stop telling marketing they're idiots. Goal 2. Reduce incident response times by 40%. Translation: work miracles with the same resources. Goal 3. Complete comprehensive documentation and knowledge transfer. Translation: dump your brain into a wiki so we can replace you. That last one was the red flag: knowledge transfer. They wanted me to write my own replacement manual. I sat in my cubicle surrounded by 20 years of accumulated cables, backup drives, and a framed photo of my German Shepherd, Duke, and felt that cold knot of dread. They were actually going to do it. I pulled up the file I'd hoped I'd never need. Guardian Protocol v3.pdf, digitally signed by Preston Sullivan. Clause 7A read, "In the event of leadership compromise or unauthorized personnel changes, the Network Operations Manager, Garrett Sullivan, is designated as primary security authority. System integrity protocols are biometrically linked to his active authentication status." I stared at Preston's signature. Bold, confident strokes. He'd trusted me to be the last line of defense. I printed the document. I highlighted Clause 7A. I walked into Wesley's office and placed it on his desk. "What's this?" he asked, not looking up from his tablet. "It's the security protocol your father signed," I said. "You need to read it. Specifically, the part about my role in maintaining system integrity." He glanced at it for maybe 5 seconds, then slid it toward his recycling bin. "We're updating all the legacy policies next quarter, Garrett. This is obsolete, just like everything else around here." He didn't read it. He threw away the warning label on the bottle of poison he was about to drink. That was the moment my sadness crystallized into something harder, something colder. I stopped arguing. I stopped trying to educate Colin. When the IoT cameras started flooding our wireless network with junk traffic, causing the handheld scanners to disconnect, I just logged the incident and waited 6 hours to fix it. "Why the delay?" Wesley demanded. "I was documenting the cross-functional innovation," I said. "So when Nicole called me for that final meeting, I wasn't surprised. I was almost relieved. I was tired of fighting for someone who wanted to burn down his own castle." But as I drove away from the office, watching that glass building shrink in my rearview mirror, the relief started curdling into anxiety. 48 hours. In 48 hours, Guardian Protocol would activate. I thought about the night shift crew. Spencer Rodriguez might be gone, but there were still good people there. Andrea Torres, the night dispatcher working double shifts to save for her daughter's college. The warehouse guys who called me when their kids' computers broke down. When Guardian Protocol activated, their screens would go black. The scanners would stop beeping. The conveyor belts would stop moving. Chaos. I wasn't just punishing Wesley. I was punishing them. I pulled into a gas station and sat there, engine idling. I could call the help desk. I could call Colin. I could say, "Hey, run the override sequence immediately or everything goes dark." I looked at the severance envelope on my passenger seat. Terminated effective immediately. No, I thought. They wanted disruption. They wanted to break things. I put the truck in drive and headed home. The next 48 hours crawled by. I tried to distract myself with yard work, reorganizing my garage, walking Duke around the neighborhood, but I kept checking my watch. Thursday, 2:44 p.m. 1 minute left. I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop open to Phoenix Industrial Solutions' public website. The tracking portal was working. Customer service chat was active. Everything looked normal. 2:45 p.m. I refreshed the page. Still working. 2:46 p.m. 2:47 p.m. Then it happened. The page load time increased. The tracking lookup returned a timeout error. The chat widget disappeared. Somewhere across town in that glass-walled conference room, phones were starting to ring. All of them. At once. Guardian Protocol doesn't fail spectacularly like in the movies. There are no sparks, no alarms, no dramatic shutdowns. It's much more insidious. It's silence where there should be noise. It's stillness where there should be motion. The first thing Guardian Protocol does is revoke trust. Every digital certificate, the ID cards that let computers talk to each other, gets invalidated. The web server tries to connect to the database to look up an order. The database responds, "I don't know you. Access denied." In the office, this manifested as the internet being slow. Wesley was probably annoyed that his Spotify playlist was buffering. But in the warehouses, that's where the real damage was happening. Our facilities run on interconnected systems. Barcode scanners tell workers where to find products. Conveyor belts move automatically based on sorting algorithms. When Guardian Protocol revoked the certificates, all of that stopped. I imagined some poor supervisor staring at a scanner displaying "System lockdown, contact administrator, error, Guardian Protocol active." My phone buzzed. Text message from Andrea Torres. We were Facebook friends. "Hey Garrett, are you working today?" Everything just froze. Even the time clock is down. Managers are running around like crazy. I stared at the message. I couldn't respond. If I engaged, I became liable. If I offered help, I was interfering. I had to be invisible. By 4 p.m., the real pain started. Guardian Protocol had shut down internal communications to prevent coordination of any potential attack. Email servers, offline. VoIP phone system, offline. Wesley couldn't email Colin to ask what was wrong. He couldn't call the help desk because the phones ran over the network that had just locked itself down. They had to physically hunt each other down. I imagined Wesley storming out of his glass office. "Why is my email down? I'm expecting contracts." Colin, sweating bullets, frantically typing passwords that the system no longer recognized. He was locked out of the very systems I'd given him access to 48 hours earlier. The countdown was over. The reckoning had begun. At 4:30 p.m., my personal cell phone rang. It wasn't Wesley. His pride wouldn't let him call me directly. It was Spencer Rodriguez. Big Spencer. He'd kept my number from when I helped him set up his kid's computer. The phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played the message. "Garrett, man, something's seriously wrong. The whole system is bricked. Screens say Guardian Protocol. Trucks are lined up at the dock, drivers are getting pissed, and management is running around like chickens. Are you seeing this? Can you remote in? We got deliveries that have to go out tonight or we lose the Walmart contract." I deleted the message. At 5 p.m., the bank deadline passed. If our daily reconciliation file didn't reach First National by 5 p.m., we'd default on our revolving credit line. Cameron Wright, the CFO, knew this. That's when the legal threats would start flying. By 5:30, the customer complaints hit social media. A truck driver posted a video. Day 2, stuck at Phoenix Industrial. Gates locked, system down, nobody knows anything. Hashtag Phoenix fail, had logistics, nightmare, hashtag unpaid waiting. It had 2,000 views and climbing. At 6:45 p.m., Cameron Wright called me. "Garrett." Cameron sounded like he'd aged 20 years in 4 hours. "Please tell me this is fixable." "Hi, Cameron. Wesley is threatening to sue you. He's on the phone with corporate attorneys right now. They're talking about sabotage and criminal interference." "Let them talk," I said calmly. "Cameron, you remember the board meeting from 4 years ago? The cybersecurity budget approval?" "Vaguely." "Pull the minutes. Look for Guardian Protocol authorization. Look at who signed off on it." "Wasn't me. It was the board and Preston." "What does it say?" "It says the system is designed to lock down if the primary security administrator is removed without proper succession planning and a 30-day transition period." Wesley fired me with zero notice and replaced me with a junior admin. He triggered the company's own immune system. Cameron was quiet. He was connecting the dots. "So legally, I interrupted. I followed termination procedures. I handed over credentials. I left the premises. The system is doing exactly what you all authorized it to do, protecting itself from unauthorized takeover. Christ, Garrett, if we don't get tonight's ledger to the bank, we breach our debt covenant. We owe them $85 million. We don't have that kind of cash. Then you better find a crowbar to get into the server room. But even with physical access, You need my biometric signature and authentication token to lift a level 5 lockdown. What do you want? Cameron asked. Finally. The right question. I don't want anything from you, Cameron. But if Wesley wants his company back, he needs to ask me himself, not through lawyers, with an apology. He won't do it. His ego. Then I hope he likes bankruptcy court. The bank closes in 12 hours. I hung up. At 7:15 p.m., a courier arrived at my house. Express delivery. Legal document. Cease and desist. To Garrett Sullivan. Immediately surrender all access codes and authentication devices. Failure to comply will result in prosecution for corporate sabotage, criminal negligence, and intentional economic harm. Wesley had chosen war. I took a photo of the document next to my beer and my laptop screen showing the Guardian Protocol lockdown message. I didn't post it anywhere, just saved it. Evidence. While I was reading legal threats, a very different meeting was happening in Phoenix Industrial's emergency boardroom. This information came to me later courtesy of Cameron, who texted me the play-by-play after several whiskey shots. Wesley was pacing, shouting, "He hacked us! He planted a logic bomb! We need the FBI!" The general counsel, a sharp woman named Brooke Patterson, was reading the red binder they'd finally retrieved from the server room safe, after Colin used a screwdriver to remove the hinges from the locked HR door. "Wesley," Brooke said, her voice cutting through his shouting, "sit down." "Don't tell me to sit down. I'm the CEO. You're the acting CEO," Brooke corrected. "And right now, you're the primary suspect in a catastrophic governance failure." Brooke had found my email from 3 weeks earlier. Risk assessment. Rapid personnel changes in IT operations. I'd explicitly listed loss of Guardian Protocol authentication as a critical company-ending risk. Wesley's response? "Stop being a blocker, Garrett." "So," Brooke said, "if we sue him, he'll produce this email chain in discovery. He'll produce the signed policy documents. He'll argue that the system worked exactly as designed to prevent incompetent hostile takeover. And he'll win." Wesley slumped in his chair. "What do we do?" "We surrender," Cameron said. "We call him. Not with threats, we beg." They got Logan Barnes, chairman of the board, on speakerphone. Logan is 72 years old, plays golf with Preston, and has zero tolerance for disruption theater. "Logan," Cameron said carefully, "we have a situation. Guardian Protocol is active. Garrett is gone. Wesley terminated him." "He did what? Who's running operations?" "Colin, the new junior admin. Good God. Put Garrett on the phone. Offer him whatever he wants. If this isn't fixed by morning, Wesley, don't bother coming in Monday." So at 8:30 p.m., my laptop chimed. Zoom invitation. Emergency resolution meeting. I clicked join meeting. The screen populated with corporate panic. Wesley looked like he'd been crying. Cameron looked exhausted. Brooke looked homicidal. "Hello," I said cheerfully. "How's that rocket ship working out?" "We need the override sequence," Wesley grunted. "Guardian Protocol requires my physical biometric authentication at the primary server console. Can't be done remotely. So come in and fix it." "Why should I? I'm unemployed." "And you sent me a cease and desist." "We rescind it," Brooke said quickly. "Here are my terms," I said. "First, $500 per hour consulting rate, minimum 100 hours guaranteed, paid up front." Cameron winced but nodded. "Second, formal written retraction of my termination, emailed to all company staff." "I'm not admitting I made a mistake," Wesley protested. "Then the system stays down." "Do it, Wesley," Logan barked. "Third, complete operational autonomy over IT infrastructure. I report directly to the board." Finally, my severance package tripled as a signing bonus. After 5 minutes of muted arguing, they agreed. My inbox pinged. "Wire transfer confirmation, $50,000. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. "And Wesley, have coffee ready. Black." I drove back through the Phoenix night. Wesley waited at the entrance, looking defeated. "You enjoyed this, didn't you?" he muttered. "Wesley," I said, walking past him, "I didn't enjoy it, but I predicted it. There's a difference." In the server room, I placed my thumb on the biometric scanner. Identity confirmed. Garrett Sullivan. I typed the override sequence. Communication is the backbone of victory. The red screen flickered amber, then green. Guardian Protocol deactivated. Restoring all services. Somewhere across the city, Andrea's scanner beeped back to life. I spent the next 8 hours rebuilding queues and processing bank files. At dawn, Wesley sent the required apology email to all 1,800 employees. 6 weeks later, Wesley's brand development position got quietly eliminated. I heard he's at some fintech startup now, probably disrupting someone else's lunch break. Preston returned to the office last month, walking slowly but steady. He stopped by the server room, listened to the familiar hum of the equipment, and nodded once. "Still sounds like money," he said. "That's the only review I need. As for me, I've got 3 more companies asking for Guardian Protocol implementations. Turns out, there's a market for making yourself indispensable the right way." The moral of this story: if you're going to fire the guy who holds the keys to the kingdom, make sure you know how to change the locks first. And never call a man legacy when he's the only one who knows how to keep the lights on. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have servers to patch, and this time, I'm billing for every minute. Thanks for sticking around. Subscribe if this story hit close to home.